Okay. Okay, I'd like to call to order our city council meeting for Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021, and ask the mayor to lead us in invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Thank you. Please bow with me. Lord, thanks once again for the fantastic city that we live in and the people that make it up. We ask you to watch over the council tonight to make fair and right decisions. Next week, we get to honor the veterans that so graciously defended our country and have given us the freedom that we have now. And we ask that you not forget what they've done. We also ask that you watch over all those that are serving, that have served and are still alive, and their families. And we ask you to watch over our first responders as they also protect our city. We ask that all we do in your name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Shute.
Here.
Bishop.
Here.
Carlisle.
Here.
Detman. Stewart.
Here.
Lawrence.
Here. Okay, I'd like to announce business from the audience procedure. If you would like to speak to the council on anything that is not on the agenda, if you'll see Miss Kathy Haley, she'll give you a form to fill out, and at the appropriate time, we'll listen to you. If it's on the agenda, you'll have a chance to speak at the time we bring it up. I also want to say that I'm going to switch old business and new business around. We're going to deal with the new business first and then the old business. The old business may be a little lengthy, and I would like to allow some of the people with the new business to get their business taken care of and get on their way. So, all right, with that being said, mayor's report.
I've got quite a few things to report on. Friday had Halloween on the Circle. Sebring Partnership put that on. There had to be 5,000 to 6,000 people there. Talked to one vendor that gave one piece of candy out at a time, and within an hour he gave away 4,000 pieces. So it was packed. It was really a nice event. It was huge, and we appreciate all the vendors on the Circle that participate, because 4,000 pieces of candy is not $20. So, but it was they did a good event. We had the GFNY rate. We had the marathon the week before, which was kind of a bust. But they had the bike race on Sunday. They had over 700 participants in it, and I think it turned out really well. Gator, he wants to do one of these a weekend. I think he enjoys doing the MOTs. So, and we're just thank you for taking them out of the city and into the county. But it was really it turned out to be a pretty good event. So. They had the Bearwoods Market down here on North Ridgewood had put on a artist night. She's going to do that once a month and feature an artist every month. And on the first, I think it's the first Monday of the month, she will have an open house, and that kind of went over really well. We met with the CRA and the Washington Heights group and trying to figure out a facade program that is affordable to them, and I appreciate David and Christy kind of working with the project and finding a way to get it done to help improve some of the properties in that area. So we had about 30 people in attendance that were really interested in it. So, and thanks to Ada McGowan, she's done a good job. Some things coming up this weekend, big weekend. It seems like we're into the season now for everything happening. But we have the Lake Jackson Cleanup Day, which is this Saturday at Veterans Beach from 8 till whenever everybody comes in, noon or 2 or noon. So there'll be hot dogs, and we're asking people to help clean up in the lake and also around the lake. So there'll be a pretty good contingent, and Sunrise Rotary is helping put that on along with the city. We have the Art Festival this weekend, so that's a big one for us, and for the Art League is put this on again. That'll happen on Saturday. We have the farmers market coming up. A couple other things. Terry Mendel just handed out on the November 13th as the Engaging Highlands Faith Voters, and this is at Village Fountain Plaza parking lot. So it'll be a nice event. Several things going on there. So appreciate Terry kind of organizing that. Mention the farmers market again. We have Veterans Day coming up on 11/11. Please remember your veterans. and especially the ones that have passed. We have other things. There's a volunteer group that has started this Light Up Lake Jackson. I don't know if you've all have heard this, but most of the people along Lake Jackson have gotten postcards, and it's kind of a neat event. There's some concerned citizen, I shouldn't say concerned, but volunteer citizens that have put together this little organization that wants to have all the businesses and the homes on Lakeview Drive try to light up as many as we can for Christmas, the holiday season, and kind of make it just a big parkway going around the lake. So you can go to lightupLakeJackson.com and register to volunteer, or if you have a house on Lakeview Drive and want to do that, you know, they want to make sure that they get as many people. So it's kind of a neat grassroots event that just came from somebody, and so it's kind of a cool thing. And the last thing I have is our Blue Streaks, the football team, won the districts for the first time in a long time, which was cool. But the really neat thing, I think every single sport, the Blue Streak sport, fall sport, there were districts, and I think one was a district runner-up champion. So it's pretty cool to have a pretty good group of athletes coming through there. And, but neat. But that's all I had. So.
Is that all?
Yeah.
That's all.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I just want to reemphasize the Lake Jackson cleanup, and that's one of our gyms in Sebring, and keeping it clean is a really important thing. So if you can volunteer, or if you have a boat, want to participate, come on over to Veterans Beach, 8 o'clock on Saturday. So thank you. Councilman, concerns, comments, or liaison reports?
The only thing I want to say is I want to say thank you to everyone that served in our military or serving now. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
No report.
Okay. Mr. Bishop?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then let's move on to the consent agenda.
I make a motion we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second. Does anybody in the public want to speak on any items in the consent agenda? No? Any questions or comments from council members? Kathy, would you call the roll?
Bishop,
Yes.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Lorenz.
Yes. Okay, we're going to jump over to new business now. So 10A, approve the recycling drop-off location within the city. Mr. Clinton Howerton is going to speak on that.
Well, let Scott do it if he wishes.
Okay.
Well, as many of y'all know, I guess I'll give kind of a quick background, but with Waste Connections, our contract Waste Connections, we were having a lot of issues with contamination in recycling, but that was only for the unincorporated portions of the county. And so as part of our deal, trying to clean up the recycling efforts and all that, we have always been trying to find some way to include the cities, all 3 municipalities, into our recycling program, especially Sebring, because you didn't have one. Avon Park at least had their own for a little while. And so what we looked at doing, because of the contamination issues, is we knew we couldn't keep doing it curbside like we were, because just too many people were putting too much garbage into the recycling program, and it was really becoming to where it was more than half garbage that we were hauling in there, and so we just couldn't use that stuff. So we had to do some changes, make several changes for several reasons, but one of the things we decided to do, is go back to some drop-off centers. But this is going to be different than what we had before. Before, when we had these bins out all over the place and had them at I think it was like 20 or 30 locations, and we still had a lot of contamination issues. People were still putting garbage in there, and we're dumping that in there. So we had to go manually, by hand, we actually would dump it out on the floor in a building there in a barn, and then go through there and manually pull out all the garbage out of it to separate all that stuff out. This is way too much to do that nowadays, and it's way too dangerous to do that, because we found all kinds of things, needles and knives and all kind of things in there that are very dangerous and that stuff, trying to do that. So now everything is done in more of an automated sorted methodology. We want to keep with that one kind of a single source kind of a type deal. But what we're trying to do, and several other places in the state are doing, are going to a more of a manned, or a staffed, I should say, staffed location, to where people are looking at, or there's someone there, an attendant there at all times to watch what you're putting into this facility. Now, with that, we can't put out near as many of them, because it's going to take that staff member being there anytime that this thing is open. So we're also going to fence them in to keep people, so we don't have access to them whenever there's not someone there. And staff members can be done by Waste Connections because it actually is their material to recycle. And so if there's any issues with contamination, it's their issue to deal with. It's their employee that allowed it to happen type deal. But what we're also trying to do as part of it is kind of bring in the municipalities into this. So we want to work with the city of Sebring and want to try to locate this. We need some locations, obviously, where we're going to put this. So if we can figure we can work with the city of Sebring to find a location to put one of these, then this also opens it up for the city residents to be able to use this as well. Because this whole program right now is funded from the non-ad valorem tax assessment that's paid to paid by the unincorporated houses in the county. So this kind of brings a little skin into the game, so to speak, for the city. But what we're really looking for is just a site, a location that we can use, that we can put this fence up and put the little shell driveway in there, kind of give you an example of what it might look like. And
There's the old ones.
oh, okay, that's the old ones. Okay, I was gonna say it didn't show up on that. So, but something along that line. So we're looking at. I mean, it can be configured several different ways, but on the drawing that I had sent over, I think it's in your packet, just kind of show where we can kind of tie onto that existing little road going in there and just kind of keep it very minimalistic if we can. But we can certainly adopt and do things slightly different. I was just trying to use a basic. This is the minimum that we would need kind of a principle. The idea is that we would have spots for up to 4 bins. We'd only have 2 of them sitting there taking the single stream recycling, which would be the paper, the plastic, cardboard, those types of materials. Then we'd have a 3rd bin, which would be for glass. And we will actually do the glass ourselves. We do that at the landfill ourselves. We can use it for material out there. So we take glass there, and that's really the most practical use for recycling glass. So we can use that. We'll have our own bin. But the other 2 would be for Waste Connections. And I'm showing 4 slots in the drawing. The reason is so you have 1 slot to drop the empty bin, and then they pick up a full bin and go dump it. And then so when they come in, so they just gotta have an open spot each time to be able to move those to drop the empty bin out. So that's the general gist of it and general concept of it that we're kind of looking at doing. And so we're hoping that you have some places that we can, or a place that we can consider putting it together. And we have a lot of residents that are very anxious to start recycling. So we'd like to get started on it as quickly as we can.
That sounds great. I think you're right. I think there's a lot of people out there that do want to recycle, and this will give them a way to do that. So, any questions from council members?
No, I'm on board. Sounds really good.
Yep. Bishop?
Yeah, I'm on board as well. Now, in the drawings, you have obviously one set up on one side of the road and the other is on the opposite side of the road. Is there any preference as far as you know?
From my perspective, none. It's
Okay.
just what you would prefer, wherever you would like to do it. Scott and I, when we were talking about trying to put them as close as we could to where the old ones were, which are on the south side, so to speak. And there's maybe a little bit more material there to work with as far as base material or something, but we could do it wherever. It
Just
doesn't-
looking
doesn't
at
have to
it,
be this.
my opinion is to put it on the right side of the road, just
Okay.
because, right there on the left side of that picture right there, that's the T-ball field.
Okay.
So if it's closer to that, you're just going to obstruct some parking. That's my only opinion.
That's certainly doable. All we gotta do is just mirror the plan over. And we can even work around those existing trees that are there. We can have it where those are kind of incorporated in as part of it and kind of help shield it, so to speak, and just kind of makes it look a little better.
Okay.
But our intention is to put like a 6-foot chain link fence around it with 2 gates, have some signs on there saying, of the times that it would be open, and instructions on what is acceptable and what's not acceptable, things like that. And then have a garbage can, unless you would prefer to have a dumpster, but we're trying to discourage people from bringing garbage to this facility, to this site. It's not a place to bring your garbage, but we realize that there are people who are going to bring, one of the things that's not recyclable is plastic bags. That's usually what people use to bring their recycling and put all the recycling in, but those are tanglers in these automated process that wraps around the wheels and all the things that sort this stuff out. So the idea would be to have just a garbage can there that you can put your plastic bag in after you dump your contents out, and then you can, so people don't leave those on the ground or throw those out. And so what we've done with the town of Lake Placid is we just asked, okay, we'll have a garbage can there. It's inside your routes. I guess if you can pick that garbage can up, when you're going by there or picking up that facility anyway, pick up the garbage can. But it shouldn't be that much.
Okay. How are you
Sounds
going
good to
to
me.
advertise and let people know that you're doing this there?
once we get the sites located, and of course it'll spread like wildfire too on Facebook and all that stuff. We're sure, because we've had all kind of rumors already trying to get started. But we'll advertise it in the newspaper. Waste Connections will do some of that, and we'll actually start doing a media blitz, so to speak. We'll try to do all we can. We'll put our PIOs in charge of pushing it, and certainly y'all are welcome to do as much as you can as well to advertise it. Now, I'm sure there'll be probably some articles in the newspaper and things like that about where they will be. Like I said, I've got a site located. We've already kind of nailed down on we're Lake Placid. We've got this site, looks to be the best one that we've come up with so far, and here for Sebring, and I still got to find one for Avon Park, but we'll probably go with these two and try to get Lake Placid and Sebring going quickly while we work
What
out
are your
something.
hours gonna be?
Then we'll have to work those out. It's 10 hours a week. Now, what my idea, we want to have them open on Saturdays, certainly, because that's going to be a big day on Saturday, but we don't want to burn up all of our hours on Saturday. But that's all we could kind of get out of Waste Connections is 10 hours per location per week. So my idea is to try to do maybe 4 hours on Saturday, and then you have 6 hours left, so maybe a 3 hour and a 3 hour, and maybe kind of break it up on over 2 days. Those haven't really been set yet. I mean, ideally, it would be maybe like on a Tuesday morning, a Thursday morning, and then Saturday morning or something like that. But that's something we're flexible on. We can work with you on that, and it hasn't really been set yet. And so some of that may depend on just how many attendants they hire and have people to do that. But we'll coordinate that with the city on what those hours would be.
I would think we'd probably have to put up some kind of, at least a dummy camera system, because I envision this thing becoming a dump site.
We do.
I like the idea, but I'm just thinking, well, we've got to think about how people are
Right.
going to come and it's not open and they're just going to throw stuff out, so.
Right, and that is one of the things. We're lucky enough on the Lake Placid site right next to a county building, and we already have Wi-Fi already running that building, so it was going to be an easy one there. That was one of the things we were looking. I was talking with Scott, trying to find one that would give us a capability of running the cameras. But I think you were talking about there may be some maybe capability of doing something out there. I think there's some ways that we can incorporate it. There's some wireless technology out there
That's
too.
right.
It's
And I don't know
progressing.
if, there were only 5 sites, and I don't know where the 2 county sites are, but I see this as being a pretty active site, and it's
Mhm.
gonna cover that whole, I mean,
Right.
but are we gonna have a traffic issue?
Yeah. Especially with only 10 hours of,
Right.
that's not a lot.
I don't anticipate you to have that much concentrated, but there's going to be some traffic to it. And of course, if we do target Saturday mornings, which is also, you're going to be the same times that you're going to have events on Max
Ball-
Long.
ball
So
games,
that is going
yeah.
to be a little bit of an issue with this site, is if we do that, is that a good or bad? I'm not sure. Maybe it benefits that you can go watch your kid and drop off your recycling. But hopefully not.
Garbage.
Hopefully you do that way, not drop off your kid and then, but.
That's
yeah.
going to be bad.
Right.
It's going to be too busy.
So that's going to be one drawback, is the peak times would be that. But we can, like I say, if that's a problem with this being open during that time, then maybe we don't open it until Saturday afternoon, maybe instead. I tried to go more of the mornings where we can, just from the afternoons in the summertime start to get stormy.
Yeah.
And people aren't able, but that's going to be hit and miss. That can happen in the mornings too, but just more prevalent in the afternoon. But we're certainly open to working those out. We're not set on any certain hours.
Well, the
4 days.
concept's great, and maybe after we do it for a while, we'll learn.
Absolutely. That's what we're really hoping, is that this will help
Yeah.
teach people how to recycle and what goes in there and what doesn't. Because it really is surprising to a lot of people what does and doesn't, and it's hard. I can sit here for an hour and go through those things, and I don't even know all the details of it. But I've heard enough of the things, but I know what isn't recyclable. When we go out there, when we were dumping out there, would be baby diapers. There were water hoses. There were, just crazy things. Tons of food. It was amazing the amounts of food that were being dumped in there, and so that was just ridiculous. So we had to go to something different. But this opens up where the city residents can also participate. So we're excited about that. Get more people included in the program.
Well, the good part is you have somebody there,
Right.
so they won't be dumping that stuff.
Right. And don't quote me on this, but I'm hopeful that it's successful enough that we can actually expand the hours.
Right.
If we get to see that we're seeing that much of a concentration, then I think we'd be looking at expanding hours on it. Now, what that would have to look like contractually between the county and Waste Connections, we'll have to work that out, because they've only volunteered to have someone there for 10 hours, and we wanted it to be their employee. But we may end up having to, include an additional staff person that's helping out or doing something. But I envision that we'd have put some kind of a shelter, maybe some kind of a shed or something along that line to give them some kind of a way to get in and out of the heat or cold or rain or whatever the case may be. And we'll have to work out and see something about bathrooms. You've already got bathrooms out in the general area, but if they're not close enough, we may have to put something there, a porta potty or something, but we want to have something there for that attendant. So it's not a problem.
All right. We have any comments from the public on this? If you'd like to say something, come on up or ask Mr. Howerton any questions you might have. No comments?
It's a great solution, so.
Yeah.
The
Wonderful.
site to the right, we'll have to work on the disc golf, because there's a disc golf location right there.
Yeah.
And we may also be able to do some removal of some of those trees and back it up.
Push it over a little bit.
Push it over this way.
Anybody like to make a motion on this?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we approve the recycling drop-off location at Max Long Field.
I second it.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from the council?
I didn't hear the end of it. Approve the recycling drop-off, and then did you say something else?
Yeah, at Max Long
Oh, okay.
Complex.
Any comments from the public? Okay, Kathy, would you take a vote, please?
Bishop,
Yes.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Lorenz.
Yes, okay.
Thank you,
You got
guys.
it.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 10B, public hearing on ordinance 1470, second and final reading. Going to say, let's see, turn this over to Mr. Swain, I guess.
Ordinance 1470 is entitled, an ordinance of the City of Sebring, Florida, amending the Sebring Comprehensive Plan, adding a property rights element to ensure that private property rights are considered in local decision-making, consistent with Florida Statutes 163.3177, parent 6, providing for transmission to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for review and compliance, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date.
Okay. And I think I missed something here. I was supposed to say, we're entering into a public hearing on this. So, all right. Well, thank you, Mr. Swain. And I guess CFRPC staff report, Dana Rydell.
Good evening, Dana Riddell, Senior Planner with the Central Florida Regional Planning Council for the record. This is the second reading, so this is something that you're familiar with. This is the comprehensive plan amendment that is required by Florida statute and some changes that occurred in July. And it's just so that we can keep in mind everyone's property right elements when we're making decisions for our comprehensive plan and our land development code.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're open to public comments or questions in regards to this. Anybody have anything to say or any questions about it? Council members, any questions or thoughts? No?
Yes, sir.
Nope.
Okay. We're going to adjourn the public hearing. And come back to,
Can we request a motion?
oh, okay. And gonna request a motion?
I make a motion, we approve ordinance 1470 on second and final reading as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further comments from the public? Any other comments from council members or questions? Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
Bishop,
Yes.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Lorenz.
Yes. Okay, gonna move to 10C. We're going to have another public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive public input on ordinance which will amend the Sebring Comprehensive Plan future land use element, adding a new future land use classification of high-density mixed-use redevelopment with site-specific application to 139 North Ridgewood Drive, changing the future land use classification from downtown mixed-use redevelopment to high-density mixed-use redevelopment. Mr. Swain, would you introduce the ordinance, or was that?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Ordinance number 1471 is entitled, an ordinance of the City of Sebring, Florida, amending the Sebring Comprehensive Plan future land use element, adding a new future land use classification of high-density mixed-use redevelopment with site-specific application to 139 North Ridgewood Drive, Sebring, Florida, herein lots 5, 6, and 7, block 48, town of Sebring, Highlands County, Florida, changing the future land use classification from downtown mixed-use redevelopment to high-density mixed-use redevelopment, providing for transmission to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for review and compliance, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Swain. Miss Dana Rydell again.
Thank you. Again, Dana Riddell with the Regional Planning Council. This request comes in two parts. As you're aware, it's also called the Nansesui property. The request is, like I said, in two parts. So the first part is a change to the comprehensive plan to actually create a new future land use designation. And the second part of the request is to assign that new future land use designation to the Nansesui property to allow them to have up to 117 dwelling units per acre and to limit their floor area ratio and their height. And in a couple weeks, we will be back with the actual planned unit development where we will have more site-specific information available. And I'm available for any other questions you may have.
Okay. Any questions from the public? Nothing? Council members? Council members? No? Okay, I'm going to adjourn the public hearing. And councilman, questions, comments on this? And let's, I guess, request a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 1471 on second and final reading as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further comments from the public? Comments or questions from the council members? Nope. Kathy, call for a vote, please.
Bishop,
Yes.
Cotto,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes. Okay, that brings us to 10D. Purchase of a truck for solid waste. Mr. Ken Fields.
It's also Mr. Fields' birthday today.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday.
Trying to catch up with us up here.
1 year closer. Thank you, Kat.
We're not going to ask how old you are, so a lot younger than most of us.
Let's just say I'm, what was that? Just in my 40s? Barely in my 40s. The opposite direction, though, unfortunately.
Okay.
Council, we're here to ask, we're going to ask you to look at a purchase of solid waste truck, automated side loader for the residential pickup. We're requesting to purchase a 2021 crane carrier chassis with a Bridgeport 31 cubic yard Ranger automated side loader for $295,386. This would be purchased through the Sourcewell Co-op contract. And we would ask to do a lease to own / finance. Really, it's a finance arrangement with leasing too. And they've given us 3 options on that. We have a 3-year, 4-year, and 5-year option. The option 1, 3 years, is a 3.3% interest rate. Option 2 and 3, option 2 is 4 years at 3.35, and option 3 is 5 years at 3.35.
What's the longevity of the vehicle?
Realistically,
Yes.
probably 5 years.
When is the next truck you're gonna purchase? Gonna have to. What time frame?
Which truck? I'm sorry.
No, your next truck that you're gonna have to purchase, when do you think is the next truck?
Following this one, as soon as I get the quote back.
And then after that?
It's going to be a front load garbage truck for the commercial
Right.
pickups.
After those 2 trucks, because you had 2 in the budget, right?
Yes, and then we should be good for, I want to say, 3 to 4 years after that.
I would suggest not going further than the 3 or 4 years then.
Yeah.
So you're picking up another truck and another 2 trucks in 3 or 4 years.
So how many trucks do you have out there altogether? About 4 or 5?
So we have 6 running. Well, it's kind of a long story. We don't have 6 running because we don't have the employees. But when we do have full staff, we've got 6 running, potentially 7 because we have 3 grapple trucks that pick up yard debris and special pickups.
And
So
you're counting those?
yes.
Yes,
So
okay.
that's, you got 2 residential, 2 commercial,
Uh-huh.
and 3 grapples. And then we have a backup for residential and a backup for commercial.
Okay.
So,
So if we put these, let's say, bought 1 truck each year, and then maybe on, say, year 5, 2 of the smaller trucks, maybe the grapple trucks, I presume, are probably less expensive,
yeah, they tend to last a lot longer.
a lot longer, okay? We could equalize it out a little bit more is what I'm looking at, if we can possibly do that. And I also agree with Mr. Shoup that 3 years is probably the most we should do. And how, do you have funds if we do the 3 years to handle this okay, or do you really need
Yes.
to? Yeah, okay.
I think he said 3 to 4 years, didn't he?
Yes,
Yeah.
he did. He changed it to
So
3.
we do have,
Okay.
we do have funds, but with the next truck, we will have to do a budget amendment resolution because the price of trucks has gone up
Right.
from when we obtained quotes for the budget purposes.
So,
We will be doing a budget amendment resolution for you
Yeah.
for the next purchase.
so my question would be, between the 3 and the 4 year, what is best for our cash flow?
I would probably defer that to Penny, Finance Director.
Penny,
Penny?
come up.
Sorry.
You're talking $30,000 or $20,000 difference in the annual payment.
So it doesn't matter.
And I think that the cost of the trucks have actually increased about 20,000.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the cost of the other vehicle, is it more costly than this, or?
I don't believe so, but I hate to guess because everything, steel prices have doubled.
Yeah.
We'd be saving interest if we go with the 3-year versus the 4-year, though, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what is your recommendation?
I would go with the option 1.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's all I wanna know. You want a motion? I make a
Yep.
motion that we approve the purchase of this garbage truck using option 1.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. You didn't say the exact amount, but we're gonna assume it's the one that Mr. Fields presented. So any questions or comments from the audience in regards to the garbage truck? Yeah. Council members? No. Well, it's one of those things that we can't do without, so.
Right.
Kathy, would you call the vote, please?
Bishop,
Yes.
Carla,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Lance.
Yes. Okay, that's all the new business, I believe. Excuse me, yeah, so we're gonna go to the old business. And I'm gonna start that with the CRA waterfront project. I'm gonna read a little something here about our waterfront project for background. So, about a year ago, the CRA came in front of the Sebring City Council with the idea of reviving the waterfront park area. The thought was that this area was being underutilized and had become a problem for the community. As Lake Jackson and the beach area is currently one of the gems of Sebring in the downtown district, the Sebring City Council at that time, which included 4 of the 5 present members, encouraged the CRA to move forward with a study and a plan for the area. Since that time, the CRA has contracted the services of Kimley Horn to come up with several plans and renditions of possible ways to enhance this area. This has cost the CRA approximately $150,000 in planning costs. That's no small amount. As you all know, We have sought and received much public input through public meetings as well as joint meetings with this council and the CRA, along with proposals from the Historic Society and even a private outfitter that had wished to purchase the property for a small amount of its real value to run a private business that might appeal to the public. Kimley Horn has already presented 2 different possible plans, and we all gave our opinions on those plans and picked some of the best points from each. The public also had input for each of those plans. Again, as you all know, there's been much discussion about the 2 old wood frame houses on the property, along with the old Magnolia Restaurant building by the water, and also the current Civic Center. Well, hopefully we're nearing an end to the process. I believe it is time to move forward, or this project might die a slow death, keeping in mind that some 30 years ago we had a plan for that area and it never came to fruition. I am reminded of an old adage of one of my supervisors: no decision, in fact, is a decision. The CRA is at the end of the contract with Kimley Horn. They need direction for the final plan. Let's give them the direction they need. So here's my thought. We have all the information we need. Let's take a vote tonight. Number 1, are we willing to tear down the old Magnolia Restaurant building to enlarge the beachfront area, and to do it now? Number 2, are we willing to tear down and possibly relocate the Civic Center to enlarge the park? Number 3, do we want to tear down the Clavelli and or the Weigel houses, or do we want to possibly have the CRA renovate the Clavelli and Weigel houses and use those old wood frame houses for some other purpose? Or are we going to decide not to decide? Again, we have discussed this for over a year. I believe it's time to decide. Let's allow the CRA to come up with a final plan. With that being said, I'd like to hear from my fellow council members and the public. So first, I'm going to give the council members a chance to weigh in. Who would like to start?
I'll start. The county has contracted for a new civic center, and we pay county taxes, so that new civic center is going to be ours. So I feel as though ours is redundant. And as far as the Magnolia Restaurant building, there's nothing redeeming about that building, and I feel like we could use that area for a much better use. So I'm happy to have both of those buildings demolished and repurposed. The 2 houses are a thorn in my side, but I understand the historic significance, particularly of the Weigel house. I'd like to see that one stay, and I'm kind of ambivalent in regards to the Clavelli house. That's about as clear as I can get.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Mr. Carlisle.
I agree with Mark on the Civic Center and the Magnolia House, because we can make a larger green area and make the park better. The 2 houses, I think that the Historical Society has done a wonderful job on this one home, and I think we either need to allow them to stay there or find them a location that would work for them. But I don't really want to see, I'm like Mark, I really don't want to see that home tore down. But I agree that we need to be doing something, because you're right, no decision is a decision, and we've had that for a while, so.
Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Bishop.
The new guy. I haven't been involved in a whole lot of this, but I'll be the third one to say that I agree with I forget the name. I can't think of the names of the homes, but
Weigel.
no, the one down by the water. And
Magnolia.
The Magnolia, sorry, and the Civic Center. I'll agree that I'm okay with those going away. I've toured the 2 homes up on Lakeview, the Weigel home and the Clovelly house. they have done a great job, and I can respect that, but I'm torn. I mean, I'll mimic what Mark said. It's kind of a thorn that's just kind of been poking me, and I just feel like that is some pretty prime real estate where we can really get somebody good in there to help grow our downtown. So, I mean,
It's a tough decision.
yeah, it is a tough decision. I mean, it's my trouble is that while the homes are old and they have been there for 100 years, I just have trouble finding the historical significance of them. I mean, we just haven't had there wasn't some big group that met there. I mean, yes, it's great to have old buildings, but I can't find the significance. So,
Mr. Shute.
I have no opinion. I'll walk the fence on this one, so I'll see you later. No, I think, one thing I agree with Charlie is that we've got to make some kind of decision. We can't keep kicking this down the road, because that's what happened to the last one. And they had a pretty good plan, except for the catwalk that went from the Elks Club to Pine Street. I think that was a little much, but it's that downtown. I mean, that is part of our downtown, but it's also if you spend any time down there and you go look at it, it really needs a rehab. It's in sad shape, and I think the plan that the CRA has kind of stepped out on has got a lot of good points. I agree if the county now with their CARES Act, I believe, is looking at a $5 million civic center. Is that right, Gator? And part of that CARES Act that is going to be kind of a state-of-the-art and also a pet shelter for hurricanes, I think. So we're going to have a civic center. We have the women's club if we need another smaller hall that we also have to address at some point in time. But if we get rid of the civic center, I think that area down by the lake, we've got to look at reconfiguring the retention pond. So if the county lets us take the library away, which I don't think they're going to do that, we've got to find a way to make it the waterfront accessible to the public and not have to walk through a ditch, where we could put it between where the civic center is and the Art League, and then maybe put it over where the palm grove is. We don't need a palm tree grove. I don't know. I don't think that has any kind of redeeming value anyway. But if we put the retention ponds on that side, and then open up that whole green area coming down from, if we keep the two houses, coming down from there to the lake, it really, I think it opens it up, and I think we've got to give the CRA opportunity to get a final plan. I don't think it's the final. That's got to come back to the public for comment. Correct, David? So this is a kind of, what I see this next step is let's get something. We've taken the bits and pieces from people that we've talked to, and let's put it on paper and say, okay, here is what we're looking at, and then go from there. But I think if we just keep going back and forth a little bit here and a little bit there, but it seems like everybody likes the concept of the big beach, the sweeping beach, get rid of the concrete pad out there. They like the catwalks and that stuff. If we can make it where it's a green space, improve the bathrooms. Those are, if you all have been down there, those are hideous. So we've really got to do that. We've had people talk to us, from a security standpoint. We talked about cameras at the garbage or the recycling place. I think that's probably a great idea, is in some of our parks to have some of that can monitor what's going on down there.
Yes.
And really, and then it's also policing from Public Works does a great job in trying to keep it clean, but I've been down there after they've cleaned it, and there is some stuff down there that you don't want to touch. And then policing too, where we don't have people sleeping there at night. We got to open it up to where it's more visible. So I think this is probably the next step is to get to another point to say all of a sudden we have another meeting and say, okay, public, here it is. We've kind of meshed everybody together. We're not going to make everybody happy on every point, but at least we've got a point here that says, okay, this is what our beachfront is going to look like, and it's going to be a park. and it's gonna be an accessible park, so I kind of agree with everybody's comments with maybe some enhancements on that, so.
Okay. Well, thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask for Mr. Lydell to come up from the CRA and give us some kind of idea of a time frame that you might be looking at and what other parameters you need us to decide on tonight.
Good evening, David Liddell, Chairman of the Sebring CRA. Yes, I agree with the mayor that this is kind of the appropriate next step. After our last meeting, public meeting that we held, the input was taken from those two drawings, renderings that were there, and the discussion was morphed together. I think there was elements of both of those drawings that people liked. Nobody really said, hey, I like this one, just run with it. They said, I like parts of this, I like parts of that. So the goal is to put it together. We're working with Kimley Horn right now to try to have a meeting scheduled for December 14th is our goal. We've got one backup date if we need to, but that's kind of the target date we got from them today, that they would be ready to go. They're asking that there be some direction given to them as far as what is the city willing to do. And the conversation you're having right now is exactly what they're looking for us to report back to them. To your point, as far as the two buildings that are up there, I think the need from us is who's going to occupy them or what type of service would occupy them.
Right.
So is it going to be the current tenant, or are you going to, would you want us to, as part of that waterfront project, to incorporate some renovations that might lead to a future restaurant or something else, whether it be outfitter or whatever? I think negotiations are still kind of going on as far as that goes right now. But to be able to give Kimley Horn some more definitive so that when they come back, they could say to the public, this is what we heard you say. This is what it looks like. What are your final thoughts? And they'll be able to take that back, obviously, and do some tweaks, but we would expect them to be before you in January at a city council meeting with the final rendition of the plan for your approval.
That December 14th meeting you're talking about, that's a meeting between them and you?
That's a
or-
meeting between, it's a joint meeting between council and CRA for public input.
Okay, all right.
I think with the two buildings, what we need to do is to take this, Mr. Stanley's plan, and I like that concept, okay? And I think if he is an outfitter that's in there, it fits his thing, but if we can put into the plan that design, where it's got the patio between it, and if it doesn't happen, we don't have to do that, but the buildings will be there.
Right.
So now, will the Historical Society stay in there, or are they gonna be repurposed for something else? But at least I think that design was a very good, I like that concept. If you could put that kind of little restaurant, snack bar, tiki hut type thing there, I think that'd be the way to at least design it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't happen, we don't have to, but that'd be I guess the ultimate design from that standpoint, so.
I agree.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, then what we're kind of agreeing on would be that those two buildings will stay for now and
Yes.
be incorporated in the design. And they may or may not be leased out or rented out to an outfitter or the Historical Society and maybe even the Art League in the Clavelli House or split. But we're not gonna determine that now, but we can leave those two there and take away the others. Is that kind of what I'm hearing everybody say? Yep.
Yep.
You
Is
don't
that, is
really
that,
need, it's just a question, you don't really need to know what's gonna go on inside those homes to do. They have a kind of a little plan, can you put that little drawing up you have? To leave those homes and kind of do, I guess you've seen some of that.
I've seen some of them, and
Like
what,
that.
yes,
Yeah.
and
The question is, for them to do their plan, you really don't right now have to know exactly what them two houses are gonna be.
we don't have to know exactly. The more information we have, the better. I mean,
Right.
all the plans that were kind of presented incorporated an outfitter, for example. So would the outfitter be up there, and do you want us to renovate those houses? Would that be the location, the desired location for it, I guess, as opposed to some of the other plans that might have incorporated an outfitter closer to the water? So what we would need is the direction that, are we incorporating those as part of that plan that you want us to handle renovations to what it ends up becoming? So they would, indirectly, I guess, be incorporated.
Yeah, okay.
And I think that we would need the ability to do the things that would have to be done as far as preliminary construction, RFQs, design, stuff like that to those houses.
Okay. Well, what's y'all's thoughts on the two houses then? A restaurant? I guess the options out there for that would be some kind of a restaurant would be one, an outfitter would be another. Retail stores would possibly be another.
I think
And-
we can, I mean,
yeah.
we can talk, or CRA can come up with a lot of that stuff. As long as we have them in the design.
Yeah.
We don't have to decide tonight.
Just figure
which
the
one in
design with the bridging together with the deck on the outside.
Okay.
And that's it for
Okay.
now.
there. And if that doesn't work out, then, we'll find some other.
These aren't construction plans.
Right,
Right.
it's just a
Yeah.
drawing.
Commercial kitchen
Just-
stuff inside, just drawing?
Just the deck for
Just the deck.
now.
Okay.
Okay, just for
If
the,
you, I think we need to cover this drawing here. I got with Scott and said, okay, this is kind of what I think it needs. And if you look at the blue line around the lake, that's the lakefront. That's how the beach comes. That's off of the one design. It's really cryptic on the side of it, and you see if you go to the top left of the project, you'll see a little fishing pier coming off the side of it, off that deck. Then there's those two big blue blotches there. That's the retention ponds, which they'll be moved, if we can move them there, is to move the retention ponds there. If you go to the right of that, you'll see the black coming off of Lakeview Drive. The top part is the parking lot, and then there will be a drive that comes down in front of the little theater in Moda. And there's a little circle there, and then the drive will come back around to the parking lot in front of the library. And that green line extends from behind the two houses, curves around, and then goes straight to, that's kind of the edge of the park, and everything inside of that gets demolished.
So you're only losing the parking that goes straight down? You keep
Correct.
all the upward
And
parking?
you may lose a little bit more of that parking too, but not
A lot.
a lot, yeah. There'll be a lot more than what was on the first plan. So the parking, the majority of the parking maintained, the parking in front of where the Historic Society is right now, Historical Society, that remains, and then up around, so.
yeah, keep in mind too, we have about 80 parking places across the street for big events,
Right.
for overflow, so we don't need nearly as much here. And of course, the Civic Center being gone, you're not gonna have big events down there, with the exception of a lot of people coming to the beach and/or, say, the triathlon.
4th of July.
Fireworks.
Yeah, 4th of July.
That may be used more
Yeah,
than it is now,
It will be.
and I think so,
yeah.
That's the idea.
yes.
So is that?
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, and with all due respect to, for instance, the Historical Society, they have about 2 people a day coming in on average. The park down there is, any time you can go down there, you see, you see some people there, but it's not, swarmed or anything like that. The library, you go out there most of the time and there's about 8 or 10 cars. So it's not being utilized right now to the degree it should. So, is that sufficient, David, to come up with a reasonable plan with Kimley Horn?
So, yeah, I believe at this point, we will communicate this back to Kimley Horn and hope to schedule that December 14th meeting between council and the CRA to have the public input and then kind of allow you guys and the public to, weigh in as far as this is what it's going to be very close to looking like. And then it would come to you all for final approval. And I think after that, we would need to be able to have start having the conversation of access to properties so that we could, begin the design work and layouts and stuff that needs to get done.
So for the Art League and the Historical Society, I'm just gonna make this pretty clear. They're good through at least the end of the year to be where they're at.
Can you guys lay a date out, just so that it's done, since we're doing it now anyway?
Well, when we have that meeting in January, so I would say certainly
Okay.
at that time, we should probably say, hey, and give them their 30-day or 60-day notice, whatever it is.
I don't see any need to lay a date out at all. I think that's silly. Let's just get the plan, see, let it be approved, and then we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right, but we have then December 14th meeting.
That's what we're aiming for. There'll be more information to follow. We just got off the phone with them at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'd like to give the public opportunity to speak. I'm going to limit that to about 3 minutes per person so that we can get through this meeting without being here till midnight, okay? So if you would like to say anything, please come up and tell us what you think.
My name's Jeff Stanley, and I hope to develop the Sebring Adventure Center. I've stopped and spoke with most of you gentlemen, trying to work out a proposal. And I'm standing here before you telling you that my heart is still in this. I've invested a ton of money already into this. I've invested quite a bit of my life and my time into this. Next week, I'm spending the entire week in Orlando looking at adventure equipment to outfit this operation with. You know, the only way I'm not going to do this is if you tell me you don't want it. Now, I've been trying to come up with a plan that everyone can live with. I've been told that the property was too valuable because it was waterfront. Then I understand with negotiations with Mr. Swain that we have 2 lots that are below the 2 houses that are marketable, that are waterfront once that other building is destroyed. I'm not asking for the waterfront lots. I met with John Shoup, and he expressed to me what he thought the building's value was worth, and the property, with it not being waterfront, based on other properties in the area. After a lot of deliberation, I came up with another direction that we've proposed to Bob, and I'm sure maybe some of you gentlemen are not privy to it, so I'd like to put it out here today. What we had offered, and of course if you don't choose to do that, we're not offering a minuscule amount of what this property is worth. We're offering fair market value. We're offering $50,000 up front, 5 to 10 years down the road, after we've proven and we've invested close to $1 million in this development, to be able to own the piece of properties that the 2 buildings sit on and pay you the balloon note when we want to get that piece of property to free it. Now, if that's something we can't work on, then we're going to have to work in a different direction. Providing you want an outfitter. If you want an outfitter, I'm here for you. If you don't, I'm going to retire. But I can bring an awful lot to Sebring, and it's out of the love for the community that I want to do this. And I can't tell you how many times I spoke to other businessmen in this community, young men, that just having their second baby, their first baby, their third baby. They want a vacation, they want to have a good time, they're getting in their car and they're driving 3 hours away from here to go to the coast. They're going to Disney World. They're leaving Highlands County. There's nothing to keep those folks here. I'm also looking to bring in soft adventure, where I can take each and every one of you and your wives out on your 30th anniversary and celebrate a wonderful meal on a pontoon boat in the middle of the lake with an ice cold drink with a little umbrella in it. Now, if you guys don't see that as being part of the future of Sebring, I understand, but I'm here to bring that if you'd like to have it. And I'm here for you. I want to partner with you. I want to change the way tourism comes to this area. And believe me, I can grow tourism here. Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stanley. We, I believe, council members, we have heard this on our September 21st meeting, Mr. Stanley's proposal. I think it was very interesting. I think the biggest problem is, and I'm going to just ask council to weigh in on this, but is selling the land to you. And I'm going to just say my opinion is that we don't want to sell the land. We would love to have an outfitter, I believe, and work that into our plan, but we're not going to sell the land. At least that's my opinion. I'm going to ask my fellow council members. If that's a deal breaker for you, then I want you to know what we feel about that. So I told you what my thought is. You and I had a discussion on this, so you know what it is.
Yeah, but you
now
scared
everybody
me
else
with
does.
a 2-year lease.
But let me just.
I can't do business with a 2-year lease.
Okay, but you understand, that's my opinion about not selling the land. So I'm
I
gonna ask my
understand
fellow
that.
council members what they think. So,
But I
Mr.
can't do business with a 2-year lease.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Carlisle. you have
I'm
any-
not for selling it, but I think, I agree with him, a 2-year lease is, that would be like cutting his own throat, so.
Okay.
But I'm not for selling the property.
Right.
Long-term lease wouldn't bother me.
Mark, what do you think?
Well, I understand his perspective completely, and if I was in his shoes, I'd be trying to purchase the property as well. But I have to agree with Charlie, and I've talked to a lot of people, and I believe that our constituents are not favorable to selling the property at all. So if we could work out any way to get a lease with you, a long-term lease, I feel like we want you here. I mean, this group of people, we want you here. And we'll do all we can, but that is something we can't. At least that's how I feel. So please don't give up on us.
Well, a long-term lease sounds great, but a 2-year or a 10-year
No, no,
doesn't
yeah,
sound
yeah,
good.
two years is silly. So,
Mr. Bishop, you wanna?
Yeah, I want to see you here. I mean, I think you got some great ideas. You're obviously well established, your previous adventure, but I just don't. I just don't see you selling it. It's just not going to happen. I hate to say it so bluntly, but I mean, I'd love to see us work out a lease.
Okay.
make
All
the
right.
mayor comment.
I never have a comment.
No, you can't vote, you
I
can comment.
agree with not selling that property. I think that wouldn't be in our best interest, but I also don't agree with a 2-year lease. So, but I think, we have an airport authority that owns the land and leases property out there, and there's people that, and they're longer term leases, and they have, and there's some people that have a lot of money invested in that thing, but it's invested because they're looking at, 20, 30, 40-year leases out there.
Right.
The long-term lease really, if he's successful, he's gonna be there for the 40 years or 30 years or whatever, and then roll over to the next 30, and
Right.
his family's gonna be in charge. If he's not successful, he's gonna walk away and we're gonna have the property back, so, I mean, that protects the city if something happens that, if you purchase a property, and I know probably you wouldn't do this, Jeff, but if he purchases a property and it doesn't become successful and he sells the property, it's something that we don't want, or somebody wants to get in and do something we don't want, we're not protected from that angle. I think that, if we can structure a long-term lease and pattern something after the airport authority.
All right.
I think you have another input.
Yes.
I just want to stand.
Come on up and tell us what you think.
Jeff Carlson, for the record, thank you for having us. Thank you for bringing this discussion to light. The discussion around town of selling those 2 properties has been on everybody's mind that I talk to anyway, so I'm very glad to see that you guys have come to consensus on that. I think that rests the citizens and property owners a lot, the worry on our mind. One thing I just want to suggest still in the terms of long-term leases, that the idea is great. I think we all think it would be cool to have these outfitter down there with different activities for people to go into, but as you enter into the lease agreement, we're talking about 2 houses up on the Lakeview side, but the ideas that have come forth as part of this plan seem to take up most of the waterfront as well, meaning boats, inflatables, all these other things. Just make sure you keep that in mind for redeveloping the waterfront to be a big lakefront beach side. We also don't want all of these other things stacked up across 200 feet of that new space, so I just ask that you take that into consideration as you go forth into the lease. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that's a point well taken there, as far as how much of the waterfront would any kind of a lease also include?
Yeah.
Because it can't just be the 2 houses, these are all watercrafts that he's gonna have. So, okay, yes, ma'am.
I'm Terry Mendel on the Board of Directors of Sebring Historical Society, and I just had a few comments. One I wanted to say about the trees, believe it or not. I think it'd be a terrible mistake to take down the shade trees. I love palm trees, but they don't give much shade. But that's just something I'm bringing up. But the other thing, of course, is the darling two little houses. And, you know, the reason you have the pain of the thorn in your side is because it's God telling you not to take down those historic houses. And you're looking for something that is going to bring people in for tourism there. You're underestimating the charm of the Weigel House Museum and what we can do with the Cavalli House once we have control of it, where we could put a lot of money into the air conditioning. Jim Pollard has been amazing with the programs that he's had there. We have an increasing amount of people coming. We just had a big event there this past Friday. And I just want to say, don't underestimate the charm of those two little houses and what we've done to fix them up. But I do think it's wonderful that we're trying to do something with the waterfront. And it's with great sadness that I don't like to hear about the Civic Center and even the little blue house. But the two historic houses are just perched on the edge of the they're not going to interfere. They're only going to be an asset. So I just wanted to bring that to you again. Thank you.
Nobody has really said anything about taking trees out.
Well, I think I heard it somewhere.
Not tonight.
No,
He just
Talking about
left.
palm trees.
No, it was the palm grove. We don't want the palm grove, but the oak trees and stuff, I would hate to see.
They're probably gonna have to be thinned, though. I mean, once you redo that it's gonna
Yeah,
kill
but you
some of
don't
those
want to
trees.
take them all out.
No,
That's-
I'm not an advocate of that. If you can incorporate them into the plan,
Right,
I don't think you clear the whole thing.
no.
Yep.
Because people
Yes,
want
sir.
shade.
Mr. Lee.
Bobby Lee. Mr. Dettman isn't here tonight, so I probably don't have to speak as loudly. Always seems an issue for him. Basically, we've got out-of-town consultants who are preparing a plan. I think it's important for this council and all of us in this room and everywhere in the city to understand that a plan is not the plan. And the mayor put it pretty well when he talked about having to fix little bits and pieces here and there. If you go with their plan and make no changes, you will rue it till the day you die. You know you will. Because the community is going to come back and say, wait a minute, what about this and that? So when they bring their plan, if that is considered final, rest assured there will be arguments forever over this thing, and it shouldn't happen that way in this town. I assume there's going to be another meeting with the city being allowed to come and visit with the council and visit with the CRA, and
That
we
was
have our 3-minute talks then too.
December 14th, I believe, is what Mr. Liddell is
He
trying to
just
come up
announced
with.
that.
Well, I
Yes.
wanted to make sure I understood it correctly, and since you were all agreeing with it, then I understood it correctly.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's an open meeting.
Okay. All right, there are 5 options you will have as I see it. And of course, you can see it any way you want to. The famous one in the military is the do-nothing option. You've already talked about that,
Right.
Mr. Lawrence. We're not going to do nothing. We did it for 30 years. It is time we did something down there. So you can either take the one they've got as they present it. You can modify it based upon what you hear from the community and from your own understanding of what we really need to do to redevelop certain areas. You can adopt an entirely different plan. Doesn't have to be that one. Or, lastly, and I'll leave you with this, you can start all over again.
Well, I'm not sure I like that last option.
I don't think CRA does either.
Keeping in mind the CRA, again, I'll reiterate, it's spent about $150,000 on trying to come up with a viable plan that we can maybe not all agree with every aspect of it, but at least come to some kind of a general consensus. I would hate to start all over again. So,
Amen.
at any rate, anyone else from the public like to speak on any parts of this? Council members, any other comments or thoughts?
I'm good.
No? No? Well, Mr. Lydell, you good to go with not a final plan, but almost final plan?
Relay the instruction to Kimley Horn, yes, sir.
I
Okay.
think it will be close to a final plan. I really
All right.
do.
Well, I would like to say thank you very much to everyone. We've already taken a lot of input for this and from different people, and we've modified a little things. The Historical Society has been here almost every meeting, educating us as to what they feel about the Weigel House and the Clovelly House. And the Art League, there was a article in the paper today from the Art League, an opinion about that. And we certainly want to take all these consensus because we're a community. And we want to come up with something that's going to work for everybody. And even for the young people, as Jeff has said here with some of the waterfront stuff that he could bring to the table. So this is a consensus. It's not going to be perfect. Everybody's not going to agree with every part of it. But if we can come up with something that most of us agree and will benefit the community, that's what we're really looking to do, to come up with a big benefit to the community. So, thank you very much. Yes, sir, did you have something? Come on up to the microphone, tell us who you are.
Hate to take up your time. Jim Burhans, I'm a resident here for about 4 years. Just spent the last 5 days with a rambunctious 12-year-old from Iowa trying to entertain him in Sebring because they're red tide on the west coast and the cool temperatures off Daytona, so we were kind of stuck here. We went the airboat ride on Arbuckle Creek. Arbuckle Creek is a beautiful piece of water, but you can't rent. You can go to the Peace River. It's a nicer stretch of water than the Peace River, but the only place I guess you can maybe rent boats is from Sandy's, and it looks kind of atrocious over there. So the waterfront here is a key piece of property that we really could develop, and I like some of the plans and the boats and things like that. I've been to all 50 states, 22 countries. My kids will attest that there's not a road sign that we don't pass on the highway that we don't stop and have to read. So I'm a very big historical buff. When I first get to an area, I go every place that I can think of, so when I have friends and relatives come, I know where I can take them. I've been to those homes. The Historical Society's not going to like me. I haven't taken anybody that has come to visit to them after I went and visited myself. Now, that's been 3.5, 4 years ago, so things may have changed up there. So I guess I don't see the historical significance. I had Scottish friends that lived in New York that were here for a bicentennial way back in 1976 when he was working for IBM. And he said, it's kind of hard to get excited about your historical stuff in the States. He says, our home off the coast of Scotland's 245 years old. That's just our house. So you've got to put things in perspective. I know the homes are 100 years old, but I don't know if the historical significance is enough. It's not enough for me to bring guests that come here. It's like, hey, let's go up and look at these old homes. I've got an old commercial building that's over 100 years old on Main Street in Iowa, and I wish I could get the thing torn down, a new building put up. But so it's all perspective, and somebody is treasured and dear, and I understand that. But I wouldn't let that stand in the way of developing that waterfront and doing the best we can with it. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we've taken care of that pretty good. So, Kathy, is there any business from the audience? No? City Attorney's business?
None, sir.
City Administrator's business?
I do have one item of business. Chief Porter approached me in reference to pump testing of the fire trucks. At a prior meeting, you approved pump testing of fire trucks. They did that last week. We had one truck that failed the test, and we had one that was in Fort Myers being repaired. It's now back in service, and it needs to be pump tested. So he's seeking pump testing on November 18th and 19th, closing one side of Veterans Beach to do so.
Is that a weekend or weekdays?
They're weekdays, Thursday,
Weekday.
Friday.
Yeah, okay. All right. Do we need a motion?
I don't think you need a motion, I just need
Okay.
consensus that that's
Okay.
good.
I have no problem with that. We need to test our
Go
fire
for
truck. And it's still gonna leave one boat ramp open, so I think that's fine. Any other comments?